Hello, everybody, and welcome again to this week's episode of Galome Elevation Talks. Lina Laga Kitimelo Siemwile, and I'm still the host of GET. Yeah, nothing's changed about that. I'm still the host. Now, in this week's episode, I will be interviewing Craig Welch, who is a digital marketer who is very much focused in implementing, strategizing, and developing marketing strategies for companies. He's worked with some of the world's leading financial, high-end, premium, the real shebang financial companies. Some of them being, I'm going to read them, yeah? Some of them being AmericanExpress, MasterCard, JP Morgan Chase, AllianceBernstein, Bloomberg, and MSCI. And these are some of the best financial companies that a lot of us use. And so, listen, when I found out about him and he came highly recommended as well, I had to bring him on the show as well to come and teach you guys some of these takes. And I remember we had a conversation prior to this interview just to discuss what we'd be talking about. And during that whole conversation, I was in awe. I was just flabbergasted because this man had so much insight into the industries of, different marketing industries that I had never really thought about. And he showed me a different perspective on how companies are doing marketing and how companies will continue to do marketing post-corona, which should be soon because I'm tired. Yeah, so I do hope you guys enjoy this conversation. I really did. And it's very straight to the point, very much business orientated. So if you're planning on starting a business, you're planning on investing in a business, you're planning on running a family business, or you're currently running a business right now, it's quite essential that you listen to this and learn how you can align your company's brand purpose to what you're actually doing and how you may be able to redefine it as you go along in a way that will keep you safe and keep you favorable amongst your consumers. And if your brand purpose aligns with what you're doing, you get customers. And customers mean what? Money. So please welcome Craig Welch as he talks about brand purpose and why and how you can define and redefine your brand purpose.
Hi, everyone. This is Craig Welch, and I am here to talk about brand purpose today. I'm talking to you from London, and this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. I'm currently with a marketing consulting firm called BlackMoss Partners, and before that, I've had a pretty long career with a number of known brands from MasterCard, AmericanExpress, JP Morgan Chase, and Bloomberg. And the topic of brand purpose has probably been a topic that has dominated the business world, I would say, over the last 2 years, but it's been a big topic for 2020. And it really drives around the fact that the world has absolutely, as everyone knows, been turned on its head. And consumers are looking for an understanding of how brands are helping, how they are making a difference, and how they are able to connect with the consumers that they serve. And so when we talk about brand purpose, at the end of the day, it is about why a company exists, why a brand exists, beyond profits. And I think that has been a message that has been in the back burner for most companies, but it is something that people are looking for now. They're looking for an understanding of why that company exists and for that company to live that purpose. So with the backdrop of the pandemic, with the racial inequality that has hit a tipping point this year with the death of George Floyd, and Black Lives Matter being a resurgence, and companies being challenged in terms of what their position is and how they're helping in that aspect, from climate change to wealth inequality. It's not enough for a company to say, we're here to sell great products. It's not about the what, it's not about the how, it's about the why. And companies that have been able to be authentic about that, to be able to talk about, why they are here and how they can help their customers realize what they're trying to become, and to help them navigate through all these challenges, are the companies that are winning, to put it bluntly. And it's the companies, even more specific, the ones that are putting I would say, their money where their mouth is. I think consumers are too wary of false promises, and that has been something that has hurt a lot of companies today. So really excited about talking about brand purpose, why it's important, what a purpose-driven company is. And that's primarily companies that have a particular purpose, and that's what they're living. It's not just an advertising slogan, but it's the way they approach the marketplace. It's the way they deal with customers, suppliers, and even their employees. And we're also going to talk about not only what is a purpose-driven company, but when it should engage in purpose, specifically when it comes to social issues. And I think many of us have seen companies this year have come up and been very vocal about Black Lives Matter. We've seen companies done amazing things to help with the pandemic, that have switched their operations to produce materials and resources to help through that. And companies have changed their narrative from just sell to, I understand what you're going through. I'm here to help you, and we're all in this together, and we want to work with you. And I think those are the companies that you're seeing now that consumers are connecting with, and that connection is going to serve them well. There's many studies that have shown that purpose-driven companies are more profitable. They have higher customer satisfaction. They are companies that attract talent, especially among younger employees. Millennials in particular will work for a company that has a purpose and has values, as opposed to going to a company just for the salary. I mean, that's how much purpose means. So it's something not only externally that companies need to focus on, but it's also internally. They have to understand what their employees value and to make sure that's in line with the company values. And so these are all, just I would say that's changing the way companies need to market themselves. And you got a dichotomy happening today. And as I've talked so much about purpose and how that's important, on the flip side, consumers are less trusting of companies now. And I think that's pretty apparent. And so how do you manage this, right? I mean, if your consumers are more wary about you and they do not believe your message, but at the same time, they're looking for companies to be more purpose-driven, how does a company act, and how do they start to change that narrative around? And I think the opportunity is very clear right now, with the entire world on pause and the entire world needing a North Star. And as I started off with, that's what purpose is. And I believe it's the way marketing will be defined in an organization going forward. So with that, I'm going to stop and hopefully we'll start getting into the conversation.
Hi.
Hey,
Hey, thank you so much for that. Thank you. I think that was a very good summary of what we're going to be talking about today. And as you guys can see today, we had a little bit of a shorter, message from our speaker, but we will be delving a lot more deeper into this topic as we go along in our Q&A. But, as you were speaking, Craig, a question popped into my head on who exactly defines a brand's purpose? Whose responsibility is that?
yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's who defines it and
Yes.
so I look at it two ways, right? There's who defines it and then who is the caretaker of that message, right? So there's kind of two components of it. And so I think the entire company, but more specifically, it's the CEO and the executives have to ask themselves, why are we here? Why is this company here? It's easy for a company to answer what we make, right? If you're Nike, we make trainers, we make sneakers, right? We make sporting apparel. And then the how is hopefully something that, companies can answer that separates them from the competition. How do you make your products that is better than the others? So Nike can talk about the technology, the dry fit, materials that they use. But then you ask Nike, why are they here? Why is this company here? And when you think about Nike's purpose, it's enable the athlete in everyone to come out. It's the whole saying, just do it. There's an athlete in all of us. And Nike is here to enable that to happen. And so they have a clear purpose, right? They have a clear purpose of why they're here. They're not here to make just sporting apparel. They're here to allow you to become someone who's active, to do the things that you want to do. That's their job. So it's beyond making a sneaker. And when you think about that, that purpose has longevity. Right? Someone else can come around and make another sneaker or another trainers or another pair. But can someone say, I'm helping you become not a better athlete, but to allow you to become active and to be the athlete you want to be?
That's quite empowering for a brand
Yes.
to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a relationship, right? That you're going to have with that brand. And think about it. If you're talking to your employees, let's take it on two fronts. You go out to all your employees and go, hey, everyone here at Nike, get you all together. I just want you to know we're here to make sneakers. Okay, that's great, right? And you're going to go, or you come out there and you say, hey, you know what we're here? We are here to help everyone out there, regardless of their ability, to become the athlete, to be active in the way that they want. We want to empower them to become that person. Maslow's hierarchy, self-actualization. You have this idea about who you want to be. We Nike employees are here to help those people, our customers, become that which they have in their head. Now, what do you think is a company you rather work for? The company that says,
I think definitely the second one.
Exactly.
The second one. Because it makes also, as an employee, I'd feel like I'm achieving something that's greater than I am. When you're working for a purpose that's bigger than you, for a brand that has a purpose that's bigger than just what they're selling, it's more fulfilling. And I think people in my generation are a lot more conscious of that as well these days. So with that being said, at what stage do you define the brand purpose of a company? For example, like when I'm starting a business, do I define it from the get-go, or do I define it as I'm going along and building my brand and my company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, especially for a lot of startups, the toughest thing for a startup is to figure out why they're there. Why are we here, right? Because you have a great idea about a product, and you need to, first of all, when you're a startup, you have to find out what your market So I'm taking it from a startup perspective, right?
Yes, yes.
You've got a great idea, right? And you have to figure out, is there a market for it, right? Is there some group of people out there that wants to buy what I have, right? And so that's number one. But the question you have to ask yourself, when they buy it, what are you helping them become? Like, what are they able to do with what I'm making? And if you're helping them become something, then it's an easier sell, right? Because you're saying, hey, look, anyone who wants to be this, right? You could be a fintech company that is making some type of payment card, right? So yeah, there's a market for that. But if you're saying, hey, look, I want to make it so it's easier for people to make purchases in any way they want to make it anywhere in the world. Now, if you can do that, if you have that as your purpose, your product is going to serve a greater need than if you're just trying to replicate another card that's out there. So you need to ask yourself what your purpose is with the products that you have. It's not only, like I said, what's the easy, we've got an idea for a product. Great. Do we have a market for this product? Yes. Why is our product better than someone else's? Now, that's a harder question to answer, right? But you can answer that. And then, why are we here to make this product? Why us? Why are we? I know I'm getting a bit spiritual, but I think you need to ask everyone and go, why us? Because it's going to get tough. It's going to be hard. You have to be thinking about the long term. And if you can get everyone in your company understanding why this company is here, why are we making this? Why are we best suited for it? What are we helping our customers become? You've got a much stronger group of individuals working toward your goals, as opposed to a company of people who are just working to produce some product.
So with that, I'm hearing a lot of, make it about the customer. So our all brand purpose is supposed to be about fulfilling a certain, purpose for the customer. Is that how all companies should be thinking of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you bring up a very good point, because, I was, I think I sent you some stuff earlier about a book by Thomas Colster called The Hero Trap, right?
Yes.
And it basically, he says this: stop fooling yourself and thinking you're making something because you're doing something for a higher good, right? And he gives an example of Patagonia. Patagonia clothing, they make outdoor clothing, right? And they talk about, we're making our clothing to make a better planet, right? Now, let's be honest. Patagonia makes clothing that you can wear when you go out and, hiking and stuff. It's mainly made for middle-aged white males, right?
Yeah.
Who want to look a little sportier on the weekend. And let's face it, they're not making a better planet. They're not. But that's what they're saying they're doing. So let's be honest, they're really not making a better planet. So you're not, so they're not being honest. What you are doing, and you have to be honest with yourself, is you're allowing your customers you're enabling them to do something, right? Like I said, Nike is enabling you to, do the things that you want to do in a more active way, right? That's a purpose that has a connection. Companies need to, at the end of the day, without customers, you don't exist.
You don't. Yes.
Right. It's a basic thing. Without customers, you don't exist. So even if Patagonia said, we're making a better planet, if no one bought their stuff, then they're not making anything better. Right. So to the end of the day, you have to be really aware. I know it sounds basic, but you don't exist without your customers. So if you have that mindset, then you understand that everything you're doing is helping your customer do something or become something that they want to be. Like, if you never lose sense of that, you're not doing it. your product is allowing some other group of people to do something that they want to do.
They want to do.
So your brand purpose is really to allow your customer to be able to do or become who they want. And if you figure that out, and I know it sounds kind of just intuitive, but a lot of companies don't think that way. A lot of companies like, oh, we're going to make the best this and make the best that. No, you need to make something that allows the customers who are buying your thing to be able to be who they want. And if you can do that, they're going to keep buying from you.
Yeah, and you see that you keep saying it seems intuitive, or this is a very basic skill. Like you keep referencing those basic skills. But one thing that I know in one of my branding classes with Mo, he always says these big companies are actually missing out on these very basic fundamental skills. They lose track of that and never go back to the basics, and that's why they end up veering off, to become something that they didn't intend to be, or are not in touch with what's happening. And now that we have I think all of us have a much more clearer idea of what brand purpose is all about. What are some of the key steps that you recommend brands consider when they define the brand purpose?
Well, it's two things. And I want to just get back to your point about why companies, Mo is right. Why do they just miss it, right? Because they're, you think all these guys, if you go to any company website, right, you see who's running the companies, and they all have gone to these prestigious schools and have all these degrees. And you're like, how are they just missing this, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. And hopefully this is changing. They are very worried about short-term goals, meaning how are we going to make money this quarter? And their shareholders who own their stock are saying, the stock is at $110 a share. And let's say, you know what? And I'll give you an example, like Nike, right? When they were supporting Colin Kaepernick, the football player who was kneeling during the games as a silent protest, right?
Yeah.
They said, we are supporting him because he is in line with what we believe. We believe all our athletes, anyone who's wearing our clothing, should be able to express who they are. That's what Nike's about. Just do it.
And they caught it earlier than anybody else could.
Right. And they did. And when they supported him, there was a huge backlash of people saying, I'm not going to buy any more Nike stuff. They had YouTube videos of people burning their Nike attire, and their stock went down. Now, in the short term, it went down, right? But Nike stuck with it. And after 6 months, their stock actually went up by 40%, right? But they stuck with it. And so I'm getting back to your point about why companies don't figure this out is because they have so much pressure to make money. And they're so focused on profit. So remember when I started off my piece, I said, what's your North Star? That's your purpose beyond profits. What is the reason why you're here? It's a longer term view, right? Short term is if we do this, if we stick to our purpose, we could lose money. Therefore, we've got to do the thing that makes us money, right? I mean, look at Volkswagen. Volkswagen had a huge deal with the falsification and the mismanagement and basically the illegal practices of hiding the defects in their diesel cars, which caused billions of dollars for them. People ended up at Volkswagen going to jail for this, right?
Oh, wow.
But why did they do it? Because people knew this was wrong, but they also knew that if they did something about it, they were going to lose money. And there was so much pressure to make profit that they continued to do what was not right for their consumers, even though their purpose was to make great cars and that they were making cars that were good for their drivers. They put profit over purpose. And that's what happens. That's when, when Mo says that's the reason, because as we know, money is a very nasty drug. Yeah. And people will just do whatever. The smartest guys that you see will deviate from what their purpose is to make the short-term money. And that's because of the pressure that's on them to make money.
But then, okay, so as an individual in a company, how do you then make sure that as a company, the brand is kind of sticking to that brand purpose, because one person versus a whole corporation, it might be harder for your voice to be heard in such a setting.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and that's why I think purpose-driven companies, right? It's and when we talk about purpose-driven companies, there's a lot of them. Like Nike is a purpose-driven company, Coca-Cola is a purpose-driven company. I would say American Express is a purpose-driven company. IKEA is a purpose-driven company. There's a number of purpose-driven companies where they have a clear purpose and they're trying to live to that. But if you watch those companies that are purpose-driven, you pretty much, what the purpose is because they communicate it externally. They're very clear about what their purpose is. Second of all, they're internally, they communicate it. Right. So everyone in the organization knows what it is. They have metrics around it. So it starts at the top, right? The CEO believes in it. And when he talks about purpose, and his decisions are made around purpose. So you may see a CEO saying, hey, look, we're going to continue to support X, or we believe that Black Lives Matter. And I'll give you an example. Jeff Bezos for Amazon, right?
Oh, yeah.
He came out and he said, you know what? Black Lives Matter. And he got a lot of backlash from people going, I don't think you understand, Jeff. A lot of your suppliers, your relationships that you have, your supply chain, they don't have the same views, and you're going to lose a ton of money, right? And Jeff Bezos said, I don't care. I don't care, because we are a company that believes that we're trying to make the world better by providing it products and solutions in a very fast way, because we believe everyone deserves the opportunity to have products from Amazon. So that means that we look at everybody and we say everyone needs this. And we know that Black lives have had a disproportionate disadvantage in that. And so we are coming out there and saying that Black Lives Matter. We're going to support it. And he's the CEO. And he had a lot of people coming to him saying, you can't do this because we work with you, Amazon. We're suppliers of your stuff, and we don't believe that, and you're going to lose us. And he said, I may lose short-term profits. I don't care. But the long term, it's the right thing to do. So you got to have your CEO believe it. You have to have
from the top.
You have from the top, but you also have to be able to communicate it. Everyone in the organization should be aware of it. You should have the CFO. You should not only just have metrics around profitability, but you should have metrics around your purpose, right? You should have ways you should be able to manage it. You should be going out and surveying your clients and your customers and asking them, are you living up to their purpose? Be very front on them and say, look, are we living up to what we say we're supposed to be to you? Right. Airbnb, is just provide people with opportunity to have amazing experiences around the world. Right. Are we living up to that? When you stay at an Airbnb, do you feel it's safe? Do you feel like, it's providing you a place of comfort, just like I would have from home? So you need to go out there and talk to your customers constantly. And ask them. And then the most important thing, which a lot of companies don't do, you got to ask your employees internally.
I was actually about to ask you about that, because I think oftentimes when we think of brand purpose, we think of it externally in what are our consumers or our customers getting from our company. But how important is it that the people internally know and live by the brand purpose to some extent?
Oh, it's extremely important. And when I used to work at American Express, right, every employee lived that brand purpose. I remember having, and think about this, your employees are going out and talking to their network every day. Yeah. And so who knows the company more than than the people who work there, right? So if you work for JP Morgan, right, and someone knows you work for JP Morgan, they're going to go, how is it there? Should I bank with them? Should I get a mortgage from them? Should I get homeowners insurance from them? Because they're going to ask you. And so if you don't really believe, what are you going to say? You're like, I just work there, but it's not that
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
But if you say, you know what, it's an amazing place. We treat customers, we look at each situation and we try to give them the best solution ever. That's huge, and if you believe that, look, I think there's a range in terms of how much people give when they're at work, right? You have, we all know this, right? And look, and I'm going to start this off by I don't believe people come to work just to do nothing. I don't believe it. I believe people want to go to work and they want to give their all because they personally want to feel like they're accomplishing something every single day. But at the end of the day, you get people who only give half of what they could because they believe they're not valued, they're not recognized, they're not given the right opportunities, so on and so on and so on. And then you have people who are giving 100% every day. You don't want to know why? Because they believe in what they're doing. They believe what they're doing is matter. They believe in the purpose of the company and it aligns with their values. I mean, think about it. If you are really want to help people, and you are working for a healthcare provider, and that healthcare provider, their purpose is to really make the lives of the people that they're serving with the medicines that they have better, and that's what you want to do, you're going to be darn happy when you come to work. And when you have to do a job, you're going to really want to do it because it's in line with your personal values. It's very clear that the company is doing it, but the company has to walk the talk. It has to actually not, we've all been in those companies where you have all the slogans on the wall and what our purpose, mission, vision, blah, 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 and they don't live it. And everyone knows it, and your customers know it, and your employees know it, and you just put all those ingredients together. Do you think you have a great product at the end of the day? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And I think a lot of companies were actually getting called out once, coronavirus started and people were concerned about safety. Black Lives Matter came about. People were calling out companies because they were not living up to those, either it's issues of diversity or, ensuring that people are safe. People were really concerned about those. So with that in mind, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you think companies make when defining their brand purposes?
Well, I think the biggest one is that, and I talked about, this book by Thomas Colster. It is the hero trap. It's thinking that they are the ones that are saving the world, right? They have this kind of grandiose view of what they are, right? Like, we are going to make the world a better place. Well, if you're only making rubber bands, how real is a rubber band going to make the world a better place, right? Like you see some of the things like British Petroleum, right? BP, they make gasoline, right? And now their slogan is, we're beyond petroleum, right? Now give me a break. They're not beyond petroleum. They make all their profits selling petroleum.
Yeah,
right? But they're trying to get people to think of them in a better way. Yet, they still have issues environmentally with their product being spilled into, oceans and lakes. They have issues in terms of how they're drilling for oil, but they're saying that they're now this very, environmentally conscious company that's going to help make the world better, but they really aren't. And so you're saying the biggest mistake is not being realistic about truly what you're actually able to do. You've got to be realistic about what your purpose is. Don't, like I said, you do not exist without your customers. Number one. Number two, whatever you think your purpose is. And I had this once with a company that I worked for, and we were trying to define our brand purpose. And someone said, "Oh, we make the world a better place with what we do." And I'm like, there's no way anyone's going to believe that. Like, it sounds great, but I'm saying how? And they're like, well, we give this report to someone who then gives it to another person, and then they are probably doing something with it. I said, okay, well, our customers are using it to make it a better world, but we're not making it a better world.
Better world. We're not
So
in charge of how they use it.
yeah, so let's be honest. So look, people don't trust brands anymore. I mean, you don't.
Mm,
I mean, if you
yeah.
see something, look, what's the reason why you buy anything? It's not because of pretty much an advertising. It's because your friends posted it on Instagram,
Yeah.
or or they're talking about it. But it's not because the company's telling you how great it is. You just don't trust them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's because of all the years of, companies, brands used to be like, I'm going to tell you why we're so great, and then you're just going to believe it and buy it.
And buy
That's how
it.
it used to
Yes.
work. And now it's like,
Mm,
guess what? I've got so much information at my fingertips. I know what you are about because I'm reading everything on social media about employees who work there, people who've bought your products, so you can tell me everything you want about yourself,
mhm.
but I'm getting all my information about your brand purpose from other sources. So that's when it gets to the authenticity, the transparency. You've got to be authentic. You got to be transparent about what your purpose is. Second of all, your purpose can change.
Mm,
Sometimes you have to reevaluate your purpose and go, is this what we're still about? I mean, are we still doing this? Are we still helping people do whatever? And so um, you've got to reevaluate. You've got to be transparent. It's got to be something that you truly are doing. And don't think of it as just a slogan. Um, and you can't be all things to all people. And so figure out what you truly are. Make sure that you're clear about how you're helping your customers. And if you do that, you'll go a long way.
So now, once a company has defined its brand purpose, as you said, the brand definition can change and the brand purpose can change over time.
Yeah.
What are some of the reasons that brands should consider redefining the brand purpose? When are those instances when brands should go, maybe I should rethink this?
Yeah, so I think it centers around the key things for any brand is about your customers' needs have
Mm,
changed, right? And so I would say for a lot of companies, and let's talk about something that's near and dear to me. I've been in financial services my whole entire career, right?
mm,
And many of you are familiar with ESG, environmental, social, and governance. It's a way of looking at the world in terms of what an investment is making an impact from an environmental perspective, or a company from a social perspective, and from a governance perspective, right? So
mhm,
there's something called ESG rating. So you can look at a company and saying, environmentally, what's its carbon footprint? Like what is
mhm,
it doing any damage to the planet, right?
mhm,
Um, from a social perspective, right? Could be gender equality. It could be racial inequality. It's how that company is doing from a social perspective. How is it doing with poverty? How is it treating women in terms of giving them proper pay, right, in terms of their jobs within the organization? And then there's corporate governance, right? How the company is governed. Is it making sure that it's not breaking any laws, that it has a proper way to manage the organization?
mm,
The reason why I'm saying that is, ESG, that way of looking at a company based on those factors, wasn't really in play 20 years ago, right? You looked at a company and said, hey, that's IBM. Are they making money? Right? How many new products are they coming out with? How many factories do they have? How many customers do they have? These are the things, or how often does the management change, right? Those are the things that you used to look at to evaluate a company and determine whether you would put it into a portfolio. So a portfolio
mm.
manager would say, hey, look, I'm looking at a company based on these criteria, and then I'll make a decision whether to put it into a portfolio. And then someone may make suggestions for its investor clients whether to put money in or not because of those components, right? IBM is
Mhm.
doing well. They've got a new product. They have new computers. But what you're seeing now is investors, especially wealthy investors, they're saying, wait a second. And I just saw this earlier this year. I was on a call, and it was with a call with a wealth management firm. And they were talking about now they can't go and see their clients because of the pandemic. So they're doing a lot of Zoom calls with their clients. And the one woman, and she manages probably about a few $1 billion of client money. And she said her clients started calling her, or bringing it up on Zoom calls. She said it was not male clients; it was all women, all very wealthy. She only deals with wealthy individuals, but her clients, all women, were bringing up and say, you know what? Can you tell me? Excuse me. Can you tell me the companies that I'm invested in? What is their stance on racial equality? What percentage of their senior leadership is Black? And she said, because of what happened with George Floyd and the tipping point in terms of the discussion around race, the wealthy clients that she had said, okay, I know how well they're doing from a profitability perspective, but I want to understand how those companies that I'm invested in are doing on the social aspect of it. I want to know, are they promoting Blacks? Do they have any Blacks on their executive team? So because they were like, I'm looking at it more than just the profits. And so what you're asking is now her customers are changing. Her customers or her clients are now want her to steer them toward investment opportunities that not only about just are they growing and making money. I want to invest in good companies. I want to invest in companies that are not hurting the environment. I want companies that are treating people fairly, based on gender, based on race. That's now important. I want to have a companies that aren't doing anything illegal, that don't have lawsuits against them. So what I'm trying to say is the purpose has changed with this wealth management firm. It's not about we're going to find you the best investments. We are now going to help you be able to invest in the purpose or the things that you care about. Right?
So, you bring up a really good point there, or something that you highlighted, is that all of these people that were asking these questions, these clients, were all wealthy women. Do you think there's some form of a reason to that, why most of them were women, or does she deal with just women?
No. So I think we've got to look at it in a couple of ways. First of all, so I'm in London, right? This call was with a wealth management firm, and the woman's clients were in the Northeast, so the New Jersey, Connecticut, New York area. Most of her clients are, I would say, 50 years and above, with most of them being around 65. So older, wealthy people, right? So let's think about who they are, right? I mean, these are people who've grown up, mostly white, are her clients. Very small amount are people of color. And so the people that she is managing the money for are people who have grown up in a very different time than there is now, right? And so this is something people don't know. There's a huge shift in wealth management over the next 5 years. Most of the wealth that is going to be controlled in the world, I'm talking about individual wealth. The people who are be making those decisions are women. That's changed. It's actually changed to be more women managing wealthy family money than it was before. It used to be males, and then it started getting close to, but now women are now the head of the families managing the money. And my thoughts around this, remember, it's because it's in the Northeast of the United States. I think those women are more progressive in their thoughts around investing. I mean, women, first of all, there's a lot of studies that show women are more thoughtful in terms of making investments. They're not, it goes against the stereotype. They're not emotional as men are. They're not,
Mm-hmm.
they're not apt to make very quick decisions. Now, these are general statements, but they hold up, and
Yeah.
when you look at it. And so when these questions were being asked, I think because these women are going, this is going on in society, right? This is an issue with racial inequality. And they believe that that's going to have a long-term effect on companies. They believe that that's going to hurt companies who don't address it. And from their
Mm.
perspective, they want to make sure they're not investing in those types of companies because they believe those companies are going to have an adverse impact on their bottom
Mm.
line. So it's not like, I think you were going here, but someone may be saying, oh, women just more kind of, emotionally connected. No, I think they were thinking, hey, wait a second, this is wrong.
Mm.
This
Mm.
is
Mm.
this is going to impact how a company performs. I think companies are going to be penalized for this going forward, and in their heart they know it's a wrong thing to do. From their perspective, they don't want to be associated with companies that
With
act that
that,
way.
yes.
And so
Mm.
why are they going to put their money there? This is their
Yeah.
personal money. This is not from a corporation. This is wealthy individuals. And so, if you had $1 million, are you going to put it in a company that you believe is operating in a way that your own personal value? Comes back to the purpose thing. Or
Mm.
are you going to put money into something that goes against your own personal values, even though
Mm.
you're going to make money? I
Mm.
don't think most people will do that, but because you have that choice. And so
Mm. Mm.
therefore, the wealth management firm, these financial advisors now have to think about, wait a second, I need to, what do you care about? Right? They may never have asked that question to their client. They may have just said, hey, look, I just know you want a 10% return every quarter. Now they have to go and say, wait a second, what do you care about? Well, I care
Mm.
about the planet. I don't want to invest in any company. I don't want to invest in any pharmaceutical company. I don't want to invest in any company that's making products in third world countries where they're abusing their labor,
Mm.
And now you've got to understand your customer. This gets back to understand your customer, because if you don't, guess where they're going to go? They're going to go to that other firm that does understand them.
Them. Well, that's actually a very great explanation. Power to the woman. Power to the woman. Now, for companies, let's say that whose brand purpose does not align with specific, let's say, for example, I'll say the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
I know a lot of companies were silent
Yes.
during that time and didn't want to say anything. Could you explain a little bit of why why you think some of these companies were silent? And secondly, how a company whose brand purpose is not maybe aligned with a certain movement or a certain social issue that's currently going can then pivot and say, you know what, we actually now stand for this without coming off as, they're just doing it for profits or they're just doing it because it's trending right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as I said before, if you truly understand what your brand is about and why you're here, you should be able to understand whether you should jump into a conversation or not.
Mm.
Right? So, like I said, maybe the rubber band was a bit too average, but to think about it, if a company is, jumping in and saying, we're absolutely in support of Black Lives Matter, and I'm trying to find, it's probably hard to find a company that doesn't apply to, but if a company makes a statement about Black Lives Matter and it really doesn't relate well with that company, like why would this company, like if you're thinking, why would this company be making such a huge statement about Black Lives Matter, and then they don't put anything behind it, like what we're going to actually do about it? We just believe it's wrong, and we stand and like, okay, so what? I mean, you're not doing anything different. So you have to ask yourself. So you fall into this thing, like to your point, there's topics that are so big that you feel like you've got to jump in. Now, the question is a couple things. So one, should you be jumping in? Right?
Yeah.
You need to understand that. And you shouldn't have to figure that out while it's happening. Right. And what I mean by that is if you're trying to figure like, wow, should we jump in? Maybe, I don't know. Let's have a meeting about it. That means you really don't know what you're about.
Yeah.
Right. Do you understand? Like you shouldn't be like, if you really know why you're here and also what your employees care about, then you should obviously go, we have to do this. We have to get involved in this issue because it's important to our customers, it's important to our employees, and it's really about what we're here for. You should already know that. So if you're trying to figure out, oh man, if we support this, are we going to lose a lot of our customers? If we support this, are the employees going to be behind it? It just means you really don't know your customers and you really don't know your employees, and that's a bad place to be. Okay. Now, second of all, you asked why a lot of companies didn't jump in. And once again, we'll go back to financial services companies, so Black Lives Matter is a great example, right? Because Black Lives Matter didn't just happen this year. Black Lives Matter happened years ago.
I think it just
Years
intensified
ago.
a little bit more with what was going on as well, Corona and all of that.
Right. And so you didn't see any financial services company come out and support a Black Lives Matters when Black Lives Matter. No,
that's actually true.
Yeah, because they're saying don't want to touch this. It's too hot a topic. We don't want to lose our customers. We don't think it's as really important. We stay away from it because financial services companies are risk averse and they try not to get involved, and so they stay away from it. But the George Floyd situation was a tipping point where it just made it, like you said, with the coronavirus and everyone being at home and everyone is already on edge and everyone's consuming social media and, that 8+ minutes of, the officer having his knee on his neck. It was a tipping point, right? It was just Breonna Taylor, everything, it just open the floodgates. And so financial services companies were like, we can't stay on the sidelines on this one because not saying anything is saying something. Like,
your silence is deafening.
Right. And so you had two kind of responses. You had some companies going, they put the Black on their LinkedIn page, Instagram page, all over to support Black Lives Matter. CEOs going, oh, I've been woke. I didn't realize this was happening, but no real specific action that they were going to take. Like, I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to be whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then you had some companies like BlackRock, the CEO, Larry Fink, and said, look, I didn't know that it was this bad. And when I look at my staff, especially at the senior leadership level, look, Blacks make up roughly 14% of the United States from a population perspective. And there's not, the Fortune 500, I think there's maybe one Black CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And I think most companies in the senior leadership level, it's less than 2%, right? So it doesn't make sense, right? How can you have 14%? And then when you look at university graduates, roughly about 14% are Black. So that kind of makes sense. So why is it only less than 2% at the exec level? Something's wrong, right? And so Larry Fink said, we are going to increase the number of Blacks in our senior level, VPs and above, by X percentage in so many years. So he's putting himself out there saying, not only are we aware that this problem exists, not only do we support Black Lives Matter, but we're going to do something about it. And I'm publicly going to tell you what we're going to do so you can hold me accountable for it.
Yeah, I was actually about to say,
that's a big difference.
With the two ways that they approached it were quite different. One is very safe because nobody can hold you accountable, and the other one is quite safe. Do you think there's repercussions for the first one of being very broad? Do you think that may come back to haunt them in the future versus, the other company who obviously, if they don't hold up to what they've publicly said they're going to do, they will be held accountable for it. Do you think the other companies will feel it as well?
Well, I have to tell you this. I'm very cynical, especially around
Mm.
the response to George Floyd and the support of Black Lives Matter in 2020, racial injustice and racial systemic racism. From a company's perspective, I don't believe most of them will do anything about it. I just don't.
Mm.
I really don't.
Mm.
And look, a lot of brands reacted because they felt like they needed to react.
Yeah, there was a lot of
Because
pressure.
they're like, I've got to do something, because if I don't do something, I'm going to get called out. And I'll give you a prime example. Apple was a big supporter of the Black Lives Movement this year in 2020, right? They had it. But did you know all of their support of Black Lives Matter, all their communication around Black Lives Matter was only in the United States? So if you went to the Apple website in the UK or Mexico or whatever, you would not see one thing about Black Lives Matter. And you know why? Because they're like, you know what? This is a big thing in the US. We've got to do something. Think about it. If they truly believed in this, wouldn't they do it everywhere?
Everywhere. Exactly.
But they didn't, because, they're like, we've got to do something in the US. We don't want to, I would think, look, I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming they're going, we don't want to make this statement outside the US because it may hurt our brand outside to be so vocal about this. So we're only going to make this statement in the US. And let's face it, when the George Floyd incident happened and the floodgates opened, you saw protests all over the world. I mean, there was protests in Russia, there was protests in Brazil, there was protests in Hong Kong. So I'm not going to buy that it was just a US thing and Apple just needed to do it in the US. I think Apple did it because they know that this was something that was really important to that market. They had to put something out. If they didn't, they would have serious repercussions. But let's not do it anywhere else. So to me, it wasn't like it was a true support. And that's why I'm cynical, right? I think what, now we're broadening out a bit, but, systemic racism has been around for so long. It's going to take years to address it. And I don't know how much stamina brands have to keep at it. I think they made their statements. They've kind of done what they think they've needed, but I'm quite sure most of them will move on, and they may have said something now and they won't even look back about what they said in 2021, 2022. I hope I'm wrong, but
I hope you're wrong too.
Unfortunately, I've just been working for too many big companies, and like I said, the pressure to make money is so overwhelming.
You actually beat me to my second last question as we start to wrap up, which was going to be if companies are going to stick to it, if you think they're going to stick to this. And I actually think the same. I don't think a lot of them are going to be able to live up to, what they've said, or that momentum is just going to die out. And once another person, hopefully this doesn't happen, but once another person, is killed by the police or something like that, then they'll come up again and you'll see. I wonder what's going to happen the next time. Are they going to say, this is what we've been doing? Or are they going to start saying, do the same thing all over again? I'm very curious to see how that will turn out. Now, as we close off,
sure,
I have two questions.
Yes.
One that I'd actually asked earlier on before we started talking about other stuff. And it's, what are some of the key factors that companies should consider as a new company? Let's assume I'm starting a new company, a new brand. What are some of the things that I should consider? A few pointers, specific pointers that I should consider when starting my company and getting my brand purpose going.
Yeah, look, I think, I'm taking the assumption that whatever you're starting it for, that there's a market for it. So that's the brand. What I suggest you do, and you can do it with no money whatsoever, is find whoever you think you're going to sell your stuff to and understand what their dreams are. What are they trying to do? Not just with your product. Right. Just understand, what are their dreams? What are they fearful of? What are they trying to accomplish? Find that out and see how your product can help them kind of become who they want to be or overcome their challenges. Like if you can figure out a way to relate whatever your product is to that bigger picture with who you think is going to buy your products, that is your North Star. That's going to get you beyond the first year of your product, right? The first year is like, let's get it out, but you want to be around for a while, right? You know, and the reason why, look, Facebook was not created just to post stuff. I mean, even though you watch The Social Network, maybe that's what it is. And for him to, you know, find a way to get girls, it was, you know, when you think about the purpose of that is to create a community, to create a community for you to interact with your community that lives for a long time, you know? So like I'm saying, find out what your customers want to be, what they want to become, and figure out how your product can help them do that. And that is your North Star. That's going to be your purpose. And that's going to guide your companies for years to come. And that's going to be the reason why employees are going to come work with you, because you're making a difference in the customers that you serve.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I think on that
No
note,
problem.
we can actually close off. That was a great topic and a great conversation. And I think moving forward, even, you know, my parents have a company that they're getting off the ground. And as well, I'm working on GET. I think this will be very valuable information for me. And I hope that it's valuable information for people at home as well to grow their businesses and elevate their brands to the next level. Thank you so much, Greg Welch. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Okay. Cheers. Wish everyone the best.